All right, guys. So today we're finally going to take a break from some of the open ear earbuds that we've been checking out, and we're going to go back to looking at a pair of IEMs. The pair that we're going to check out today is the brand new Moondrop Kadenz, or Kato 2, because essentially this is like a sequel to the original Kato. These come in at $189, so this isn't one of those like high-end pair of IEMs when it comes to price point, although I would still consider this a flagship IEM for Moondrop, but with a twist. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife when it comes to IEMs because of all the different ways that you're able to use it. So we'll talk about that throughout the video, but let's go ahead and start with the design and the build quality. Now, the weight on these, they definitely have a good amount of weight. They do feel extremely solid, like once you have them in your hands. But they're very clean looking. There's no like overly bright colors or colors at all. It's really just a matte like metal finish. Even the cable is just white, but it is a nice thick cable. You can see that it's braided. It is using the 2-pin connection, so if you have any other 2-pin connection cables, you can just use those. But I like the fact that out of the box, the cable has the 3.5mm plug-in, but they also include a 4.4mm balanced adapter if you want to use that. And the huge selling point with this IEM, in my opinion, is the USB-C adapter that they've included. It's basically having the DAC or DSP built into the cable itself. This eliminates having to have an external amp, which usually just adds to the cost of buying IEMs. And because it's USB-C, like pretty much everything at this point has USB-C. My laptop does, my phone, which is an Android phone, but even if you have the newest iPhone, those use USB-C plugins as well, and handheld gaming devices. So it's pretty universal to like what you can use these for. And pretty much throughout my testing, this is what I used because I found that it is so convenient not to have an amp and just to have it already on that cable. So I never disconnected the USB-C cable from the actual cable. That's how I used it the whole time. But with using the USB-C cable, one thing that these can do that a lot of other IEMs can't is Moondrop's app recognizes this as like an Echo B. So this is the type cable that you're using with that USB-C. And what it allows you to do is use their EQs that are built into the app, and it will transfer over to the actual IEMs as long as you're using that USB-C cable. So you can have it like locked in after choosing which EQ that you want within the app, and then go use it on your laptop or use it on anything else, and that EQ setting will carry over. Now, I do want to say that I do think Moondrop's app is awful. It's not very feature rich. It's even kind of frustrating to use because when you switch between the different EQ options, and I do want to say EQ options very loosely because it essentially is basically taking like your standard tuning that's on the IEMs already and adding things. So it's adding bass, or you have a double bass, or you have adding treble, or you can add soundstage. So that's like the pre-built EQ options. Now you can go in and customize the EQ settings that you want, and it is very, very customizable. But I want to go back to the EQ options you can switch between. Every time that I switch from one to the next, it basically paused my music and had me have to approve, like a little pop-up comes up. And it's very frustrating. It's not very seamless to go from one EQ setting to the next. But the one that I found that I liked the most was the soundstage setting. I felt like that just opened things up a little bit more. It didn't ever take away from the sound itself. And we'll talk about the sound a little bit more once we get to that part. But the overall sound that these have, it is very, very dynamic and in your face. I don't feel like it's trying to like hold anything back. And all of these EQ settings are just kind of adding to that. But again, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, it also in the box comes with a nice zippered hard case. It does come with 6 different ear tips in 2 different styles. So in one style, you'll have 6 ear tips, and another style, you have 6 more ear tips. And both of these are slightly different. They're both silicone, but one has it tightened up a little bit more when it comes to the low end, and the other one just allows it to be a little bit more loose. It also comes with 3 different nozzles inside the box, basically a small, medium, and large. Now these do not change the sound in any way. They're just different lengths. So if you want to use a longer nozzle to have it go closer into your ear canal, you have that option. If you need a shorter one, you have that option. So this is just going to come down to personal preference, but do know that it doesn't affect the sound quality depending on which nozzle you're using. Now, going back to the use of an amp or the need for an amp, if you are going to just use the 3.5mm cable or the 4.4mm balanced cable, the impedance level on the IEMs themselves comes in at 35 ohms. The sensitivity level is at 122 decibels, and the frequency response sits between 8 hertz all the way to 21 kilohertz. And really, to kind of sum up all of these numbers and kind of explain it, I don't necessarily think that an amp is needed for volume. I think you're going to get plenty of volume. And I did just switching between different devices, just using the normal plugins. But to be able to take advantage of the frequency range, to be able to get more out of the low end and to be able to pull out a little bit more out of the highs, this is where you would want to use an amp. I think out of the box, it does a decent job with giving you low end, and I think it does a pretty decent job of pulling out treble a little bit. But I feel like the mid-range kind of suffers a little bit unless it's plugged into an amp. Basically, it kind of feels a little congested without having an amp to pull things out. But again, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the sound now. And do keep in mind, this is with using the USB-C plug-in, and this is with using the Soundstage EQ. I felt like that was the sweet spot with these. I feel like if you go through and you use the bass plus or the bass double plus, things just get a little too muddy. It just gets way too warm. It pulls down the details a little too much, in my opinion. I think it takes the dynamic out of the music, except for the low end, but at that point it just becomes too muddy and it's not really fun to listen to. But the Soundstage EQ setting still allows that low end to have a really nice punch. There's definitely an aggressive low end with these IEMs, but it is not distracting to the mids or the treble. The treble still has actually quite a bit of brightness, where at times it may even seem a little too harsh, depending on your preference. Now, I like having a brighter treble if I'm going to have bass that has that, you know, kind of thick punch to it. I think it just feels a little more balanced out that way. And the mids on these with the Soundstage Plus or whatever EQ definitely pushes everything a little bit more forward. So I never had an issue hearing male or female vocalists. In movies, TV shows, gaming, and anything like that, I never had an issue hearing dialogue. And acoustic instruments and even electric guitars just have this really nice, like, natural tone to it. Nothing sounded overly artificial. Nothing had any kind of like compression to it. It really did sound like you're plugging these into a pretty decent amp, like sitting at your computer. And that's all with that little USB-C plug-in, which is again why I never took it off. That was what I used pretty much the whole time, and I was extremely happy. And same thing with the Soundstage and the sound imaging. This is a wider sounding pair of IEMs, especially if you're going to compare these to the original Kato. This has a lot more space in the sound, and it does a very good job of being able to tell where different sounds are coming from it. So really my overall opinion on these is this. If you're looking to spend under $200 on a pair of IEMs, and you don't want to go and spend the extra money for an amp or a portable DAC or anything like that, this is kind of like the all-in-one package. And this is why I called it like the Swiss Army knife, because you can use the 3.5mm plug-in into whatever you want that way. You have that balanced 4.4mm plug-in for DACs or amps that you may already have to be able to take advantage of that. Or you just use the USB-C plug-in, which is likely going to work on anything that you already have. So basically, you already have your amp that you need or the DAC that you need in the box, and you're good to go. And you don't have to spend any more than $200 because, again, these do come in at $189. But if you're looking for a pair to use at the gym or you're going to be running a lot, I will say maybe be a little careful here because the weight of these might become an issue there. I think if you're running a good bit, it may move around quite a bit more because there's a little bit more weight on them. But again, this is going to come down to ear size and the just activity that you're doing in general. So I highly recommend these. I think this is a really good release from Moondrop. I can see this being very popular. because of all the different ways that you can use it out of the box without having to buy extra accessories or pieces. So this is a good way to get into audiophile listening if you're not wanting to throw money at other accessories right from the jump. But guys, that's my video on the brand new Moondrop Kadenz IEMs. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.